أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم إنما وليكم الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم راكعون. صلوات پڑھنے ایک بار آپ. We've gathered this evening to commemorate the Zarbat event of the Wali of Awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the supreme master of the spiritual masters of the world of Islam, the Amir and the chief of the believers, an Imam whose name is part of our identity when we call ourselves Shi'atu Ali, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. In these two majalis this evening and on the 21st of Ramadan, I would like to talk about two themes. One is about the earth and the other is about the heart. One is about the land and the other is about the soul. And both these in a way are relevant to Amir al-Mu'mineen. It's interesting to see that even among his titles, he is known as Abu Turab, referring to the land, and he is also known as Imam al-Muttaqeen, the leader of the Muttaqeen and the pious. Taqwa is a spiritual power. These days there is a lot of discussion in the world about saving the earth and its environment. And of course, as Muslims, we also believe it's an important issue, but without ignoring the importance of saving the soul. And this is what, inshallah, I would like to talk in the context of the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen about reviving the earth and reviving the soul of a human being. Salawat. In order to understand that example of Amir al-Mu'mineen as somebody who revived the dead land, let me talk about the earth itself first. According to the Quran, the earth goes through a cycle of life and death every year. In the winter time, it dies. In spring, the earth comes alive. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran repeatedly uses this natural phenomenon as an example to explain the concept of Qiyamah. It says, just as the earth dies in winter and it's revived in spring, you will die one day, but then the day of Qiyamah will come and I will revive you. When we look at this phenomenon, we also know that on this earth, there are certain parts of the earth which are dead not only during the winter time, but for a long, long time. And this is where when we look at the earth, we say there are certain areas of the world which are dead, as far as the land is concerned. And there are many, many areas which are alive and healthy. A living and a healthy land is a land which has ample supply of water, either from the clouds or from the surface, river and lakes and other sources, or from underground. And with that source, it is able to produce grass and trees and forests. And it's also capable of producing food for humans as well as animals. On the other hand, we see certain parts of this world, we call that dead land. It is no rain, no source of water on the surface or underground, and therefore gradually it dies. Nothing grows there. And this is where we come to realize this concept of a land which is dead and a land which is living and healthy. One of the forgotten chapters of the Sharia in fiqh is a chapter which is known as Ihya'u Ardh al-Mawat. It's a section where they talk about this issue, and the meaning of the words ihya ard al-mawat means reviving the dead earth. And what it actually means in the Islamic laws, that if there is a land somewhere outside, not normally in the cities or the towns, which is a barren land, not owned by anyone, let's say it's a public land, and it is a barren land because it has no water source. If a person goes there, digs a well so that he is able to bring water to that land and revive it, according to the Sharia, that land which was dead and he revived it becomes his property. This is the Shari'i mas'ala. And according to the Sharia, basically this is based on a very famous hadith of the Prophet where he says, "Man ahya ardan mayta fahiya lahu." Whoever revives a barren, dead land, it becomes his property. And this is basically, he's allowed then to possess it, use it for himself, for his family, or for the community. And this law in Islam, in Sharia, is there basically to promote what we would call development of the barren land. And this is known as reviving the dead land. Now you would be thinking, what has this to do with Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali? We know Ali as far as his childhood and youth age is concerned in Mecca. We know quite a lot about the life of Ali in Medina when the Prophet was alive and his contribution to Islam. We also know quite a lot about the 5 last years of his life when he was accepted as a ruler and a Khalifa of the Muslims. But we don't hear much about 25 years of the life of Ali during the reign of the 3 Khulafa. What was Ali doing during that quarter of a century of his life? History describes those 25 years as years of silence. Yes, from the political point of view, Amir al-Mu'mineen had decided to exercise patience and silence, but the silence of Ali was very powerful. It was a very meaningful silence. It didn't mean that he accepted the legitimacy of the Khilafat of the 3 Khulafa. No. Just for the sake of the greater interest of Islam and the Muslim Ummah, Ali decided not to resort to sword in order to get his right of succession to the Prophet. Just one quotation for tonight. This is a letter that he had written to the people of Egypt. This is different from the letter that he wrote to Malik Ashtar. This is addressed to the people of Egypt, given to Malik Ashtar for them, where he says, just one passage from it where he says, فَلَمَّا مَضَى صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ تَنَاضَعَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ الْأَمْرِ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ. He says, when the Holy Prophet passed away, the Muslims started a tug of war for leadership. And then Ali says, فَوَاللَّهِ مَا كَانَ يُلْقَ فِي رَوْعِي وَلَا يَخْطُرُ بِبَالِي أَنَّ الْعَرَبِ يُضْعِجُ هَذَا الْأَمْرِ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ عَنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتِهِ. Ali says, I swear by Allah that it never occurred to my heart nor it crossed my mind that the Arabs, after the Prophet, would snatch this position from his family or that they will push it away from me after him. He says, when I saw people swarming around this individual doing bay'at, Ali says, I was taken by total surprise. This is not what I was expecting. But then he says, فَأَمْسَكْتُ يَدِي حَتَّى رَعَيْتُ رَاجِعَةَ النَّاسِ قَدْ رَجَعَتْ عَنِ الْإِسْلَامِ. He says, therefore I decided to hold back my hands because I saw there was rebellion from all sides. Until a time came when I realized that if I do not get involved, when people have now come to me after 25 years, then the religion of Muhammad will be destroyed. And that is where he says at the end that therefore I decided to step in midst of the chaos until falsehood was vanished and died, and the religion was secure. This is the perspective of Ali's silence of the 25 years. But what was he doing? What was he doing other than whenever the opportunity came to protest against what happened to him? He was actually, during those 25 years, this is where we have to look at his personal life. And this is what I would like to concentrate here. Ali, those days, was busy in reviving the dead and barren lands between Mecca and Medina, going to areas which did not belong to anyone. There was nothing there, no trees, nothing. He would actually dig deep wells so that water will come up, and then he would plant palm trees so that he can support himself and his family for generations to come, and as well as to use it as a charity to help the poor and the needy in the community. This is the side of Ali's life in that 25 years that people don't know much about it. I had recited about this about 11 years ago, but I would like to revive this issue, that Amir al-Mu'mineen revived many such barren lands. And he made them, capable for cultivation. And it's worth mentioning that Amir al-Mu'mineen in most of these cases would work by himself. It is his hard work. And because of that, he was able to actually produce so many gardens of palm trees, and he dedicated many of them as charity, that historians actually talk about a concept. They give a list of properties between Medina and Mecca, closer to Medina, which are known as Sadaqat Ali bin Abi Talib. Sadaqat is plural of Sadaqah. The charities of Ali bin Abi Talib. We don't know much about it. But if you look at the books, especially dealing with the geography of Medina, and I had the opportunity to look at this 11 years ago to study about it, especially from a scholar of geography of Medina who lived in the 2nd century of the Hijrah. And he has, very detailed description of the lands that Amir al-Mu'mineen, brought back to life. These are barren land where Ali dug very deep wells and made it, possible for it to change into gardens of palm trees. Salawat padne ek baar aala. For example, we have a hadith from our own source, where one day Amir al-Mu'mineen was going away from Medina, going out. Somebody saw him carrying a huge bag, which had these seeds for the palm tree. And he asked Ali, Ma hadha ya Abul Hasan? And Amir al-Mu'mineen pointed to it and he says, Mi'a alf nakhl inshallah. He says, inshallah, this will turn into thousands of palm trees for me. So he was going to his land where he had, made it capable of, maintaining these gardens. He was going to basically plant the seeds there. Especially when we talk about water wells, we have to realize in Arabia, most of the area is desert area. Water was not that easily available. And there was actually a parcel of land during one of the conquests where the Prophet would gift, some of the conquered areas to the warriors. And Amir al-Mu'mineen was always there at the forefront. One parcel of land which was totally barren was given by the Prophet, gifted by the Prophet to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Historians say that when he got it, he went there. احتفر فيها عينا. He went and he started digging. فخرج ماء ينبع في السماء كهيئة عنق البعير. He says he actually dug so deep that he hit the source of water which came out in so much force that it looked like as if, there was the neck of the camel. The force of the water which was coming up like a fountain. And this is the area that Ali, because of that spring, Yamba'a, the word Yamba'a, the water started to spring out. He actually named that area as Yambu. There is those who lived in Saudi Arabia, there is an area known as Yambu, between Medina and the Red Sea. And that is the area named by Amir al-Mu'mineen, and Yambu means a spring. And this is where you go and study about it. You come to realize that Amir al-Mu'mineen had actually made that land, which was very vast, into waqf, perpetual charity and endowment. According to one document which I was able to read, Amir al-Mu'mineen actually asked three of his slaves. He says, I make a deal with you. You take care of this garden of palm trees that I have, built. Take care of it, water it. I have dug these wells. Take care of it for 5 years, and then you are free. And whatever proceed you get, you can use it for yourself also. And after 5 years, you are free. And then he said after that, he basically made it as an endowment where he will manage it. And later on, it was Hassan and Hussein, that they will use it for their own personal use, and then use the amount specified by him for charity. And this is where we see that, especially when we talk about Yambu, in our Shia sources, we have a narration that actually Amir al-Mu'mineen dug 7 wells, water wells in the Yambu area. 7 means that the land was very vast. One water well was not sufficient. So in different areas of that vast land, Amir al-Mu'mineen dug the water wells so that he can make that area alive and no more barren. Even now, if you look at the map in Medina, since the city of Medina itself has expanded, one of the suburbs of Medina now, which is now a suburb, is known as Abiyar Ali. Abiyar is plural of Bi'r. Bi'r means water well. Abiyar Ali means this was an area, those days it was outside Medina. And Amir al-Mu'mineen had gone there and dug water wells in order to make that area, capable of becoming a green area and reviving that land. Till now, the name is still there, Abiyar Ali. May Allah curse these Wahhabis. They are already coming with narrations, this has nothing to do with Ali bin Abi Talib. I was just looking at some of the things they have on site, trying to distance his contribution is charity. And especially, next time you go for Umrah or Hajj, and when you come from Medina to Mecca, you pass by Yambu or Rabiq. If you buy the water bath bottle, look at the name there. Most probably you will see it says Bi'r Ali. It means these are the water wells which are still giving water centuries after the time Amir al-Mu'mineen dug those water wells. Salawat. We'll talk more about it in more detail, his lifestyle and how he maintained his family. Many questions about Hassan and Hussein, how they lived their life, will be answered by those, narrations. But tonight, let me end with this issue of Yambu. Yambu was the biggest property of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and it has been mentioned in different events of history. 2 of them are important here. Number 1, when the Muslims started protesting against the unjust policies of the 3rd Khalifa, and the delegation from Kufa in Egypt came to Medina, they started actually rallies against the Khalifa, along with the people of Medina. There was an attempt to negotiate between the 2 parties. And many times, Amir al-Mu'mineen would be asked by the Khalifa Osman to come and mediate. Although he would ask him to mediate, but he always suspected that Ali's sympathy was with the rebels and those who were protesting. And therefore, sometimes, he would send Abdullah ibn Abbas and he would say, tell your cousin to leave the city of Medina and go to his property in Yambu and spend a few days there. He didn't like the presence of Ali there because those who were protesting would always go towards him for guidance and seeking the right way. And so this is where the name of Yambu is coming again and again among the properties of Amir al-Mu'mineen, where he used to go and spend his time. And then we also hear about it after the events of Karbala. After the Shahadat of Hussein bin Ali, when the people of Medina, organized an uprising against Yazid, and they threw the governor of Yazid out of the city, the clan of Banu Umayyah in Medina felt in danger. At that time, their chief, Marwan bin Hakam, the son-in-law of the third Khalifa, went to the door of Abdullah bin Umar, asking for refuge, not for himself, but for his wife and children in his house. Abdullah bin Umar closed the door. Where did this fellow end up? He comes to the door of Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. And Imam didn't hesitate. He said, you are seeking protection for your wife and children in this chaotic situation? Bring them in. And next day with his son, he sent them, and this is where history is coming again. Yambu comes in. He sent them to his property in Yambu so that they will be away from the city and be in a more protected area. Not only that, even if you study these statements of Amir al-Mu'mineen during his early days of his Khilafat, you will not be able to understand that unless you study those 25 years of silence, so-called. What was Ali doing? Because when Amir al-Mu'mineen took over the Khilafat, the very first mandate that he had was to reform the Baytul Mal. The Sahaba were used to these privileges by the second and the third Khalifa especially, where the Sahaba or Arabs will get more compared to the others. The Qurayshi will get more, Muhajirin will get more than the others. And when Amir al-Mu'mineen came, he said, listen, all of you are Ibadullah, and the mal and the wealth in Baytullah is Malullah. I am going to divide it equally. I don't see whether you are Arab or Ajam, you are black or white, master or slave, Qurayshi or non-Qurayshi. The distribution will be done on the basis of equality, the way it was done during the days of Rasulullah. They didn't like it. And Amir al-Mu'mineen had to actually emphasize the point. One sentence he says, and this is important, he says, إِنِّي وَاللَّهِ لَا أَرْزَعُكُمْ مِنْ فَيْئِكُمْ دِرْحَمًا مَا قَامَ لِي إِدْقٌ بِيَثْرِبْ. He says, remember, I will not deprive you of a single dirham from Baytul Mal, from your share, as long as a cluster of dates from my gardens in Medina come to me. I'm not going to take even a dirham from your Baytul Mal. And then he says, remember, فَتَرَوْنِ مَانِعًا نَفْسِ وَمُعْتِيكُمْ. Do you think a person who deprives himself of his own share from Baytul Mal is going to give you more than your share? Forget it. And so Ali is even saying, I will leave my own share, I'll not take it, as long as this cluster of dates come to me from my gardens in Medina. Which gardens he is talking about? Unless you go and study the 25 years. These are the areas he had developed, cultivated outside Medina, close to Medina, where this became a source of revenue to maintain himself and his family. Salawat. Ali did not only revive the barren and dead lands, Ali is also the source of reviving the dead hearts. This is where I'm coming to the other theme. अली सिर्फ मुर्दा ज़मीनों को जिंदा नहीं करते थे, बल्कि मुर्दा ज़मीरों को भी जिंदा करते थे. And that's two different areas, different kind of leadership and example for us. When you look at the state of heart, just as the land could be alive and dead, similarly the heart goes through different phases, different kinds. There is a heart which is spiritually dead. We are not talking about medical terms here. There could be a heart which is spiritually sick. And then there could be a heart which is spiritually healthy. When you talk about the death of a heart from the spiritual point of view, there are two diseases which can inflict the heart and make it dead. One is kufr, and Quran talks about it very clearly. Mufassirin say, kufr is mawtul qalb. And the other is nifaq, hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is also a disease which will make the heart dead. But what is the difference? Kufr is a disease, a cancer which is visible. You can see the heart is dead or disease or whatever. Nifaq is a disease which is cheating the people. The heart is dead, but it pretends to be alive. That is the difference between the two. Otherwise, both are actually disease which will make the heart spiritually dead. Then there is a second category of the sick heart. And this is a warning for each one of us. Even Muslims and mu'mineen can be afflicted by a state of sick heart spiritually. This is when doubts and suspicions about religion comes into the mind and the heart of a person. A wavering heart, a mu'min whose iman is za'if and weak. The believers with weak faith are those who are suffering from a sick heart spiritually. And the way it has been described by the ulama and the mufassirin is that, those who listen to every loud-mouthed person and they turn depending on the winds. If it's going east, like the tall grass, wherever the wind is going, they, turn that side. They don't have that stability. Their heart is not steadfast. And this is where we talk about the iman which is za'if. It's a shifting state of the heart. And this is where then we come to the last situation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about this sick heart, there are many, many ayat where He says, وَفِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٍ. It's not only about munafiqeen. He says many times He uses the word munafiqeen and then He says, and those whose heart are sick, which actually refers to some of the mu'mineen. And this has been mentioned many, many times. Those who work to overcome that sickness, Allah would help them. But those who don't, Quran says, Allah will increase their sickness. And they will reach to the point of nifaq and kufr. And then we come to the third state, where the heart is healthy, alive, spiritually. And this is a heart which is at peace with iman and belief. And this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Hujurat says, وَحَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانِ وَزَيَّنَهُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. Allah has made iman an object of love for you. And He has made it a decor and a beauty for your hearts. It is a zinat for your qalb. Another ayat in same Surah Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, who are the mu'mineen? إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ ثُمَّ لَمْ يَرْتَابُوا. True mu'mineen are those who don't entertain doubts and suspicions about their faith. And that is the iman which is on the level where we can say it's a healthy heart and it is a living heart from the spiritual point of view. Salawat padne ek baar aur. How do you know which heart is alive and healthy and which heart is sick? We have to go to the spiritual doctor. And for us, that is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he says, according to Sahih Muslim, Sahih Tirmidhi, Sunan al-Nisa'i, and many, many others, all of them have quoted this, that one day Rasulullah looked at Ali and he said, Ya Ali, لا يحبك إلا مؤمن ولا يبغضك إلا منافق. O Ali, nobody loves you but a mu'min, and nobody hates you but a munafiq. رسول اسلام نے وہ معیار پیش کیا ہے کہ اگر آپ کو پرکھنا ہے زندہ ضمیر کون سی ہے، مردہ ضمیر اور دل کون سا ہے، تو معیار صرف ایک ہے. کفر جو ہے ظاہر ہے، اس کو پہچاننے میں پریشانی نہیں ہے، اس لیے کافر جو ہے چھپاتا نہیں ہے. پرابلم اس وقت تھا آپ کو ایکچولی وہ جو دوا چاہیے وہ اس کے لیے جسے ہم نفاق کہتے ہیں، ظاہر میں کچھ اور ہے، باطن میں کچھ اور ہے. اس ایمان اور اس نفاق میں اگر تمیز کرنا ہو، ڈائگنوز کرنا ہو کہ اس انسان کے دل میں کیا یہ زندہ ہے یا مردہ ہے، تو اس کا علاج صرف ایک ہے. آپ جائیے جابر بن عبداللہ سے پوچھئے. جابر بن عبداللہ انصاری اور ابو سعید خدری یہ بہت بزرگ صحابہ ہیں رسول اسلام کے. یہ خود اسی حدیث کی بنیاد پر کہتے تھے کہ جب ہم مدینہ میں رہتے تھے، ما كنا نعرف المنافقین، کہ اگر ہمیں پہچاننا تھا کون مومن ہے کون منافق ہے، الا ببغضهم علیا، ہم یہ دیکھتے تھے کہ ان کا رویہ علی کے ساتھ کیا ہے. اگر ہم دیکھتے تھے کہ ان کے دل میں بغض ہے تو یہ علامت تھی کہ ان کے دل میں نفاق ہے، ان کا دل جو ہے مردہ ہے یا بیمار ہے. صلوات پڑھنے ایک بار. حب علی, love of Ali is basically the litmus test to see whether the heart is live and healthy or not. اور یہ ہے عظمت امیر المومنین کی. اپنی زندگی میں انہوں نے مردہ زمین کو زندہ کیا، اور ابھی تک ان کے محبت جو ہے یہ معیار ہے انسان کے دل کی کیفیت کو پتہ لگانے کے لیے کہ اس میں ایمان ہے یا اس میں نفاق ہے. کمال کی بات یہ ہے کہ تمام احادیث کو دیکھ لیں، برادران اسلام کی کتابوں میں بہت سے سیکشنز ہیں ان کے حدیثوں کے بک میں فضائل الصحابہ کے نام سے، لیکن یہ فضیلت کہیں نہیں ہے. کسی صحابی کے بارے میں یہ نہیں کہا گیا ہے کہ اس سے محبت کرنا علامت ایمان ہے اور اس سے بغض کرنا علامت نفاق ہے. تمام صحابہ کے بارے میں ہم جج کریں گے علی کے حب کے حوالے سے، لیکن علی کے بارے میں یہ معیار نہیں ہے، بلکہ خود علی ہمارے لیے سٹینڈرڈ اور ایمان اور نفاق کے درمیان جو میجر ہیں وہ علی ابن ابی طالب ہیں. صلوات پڑھنے ایک بار. لیکن کبھی کبھی کچھ دل ایسے بھی ہوتے ہیں کہ جتنا آپ پانی ڈالیں اس پر اثر نہیں ہوتا ہے. زمین کی بات کچھ اور ہے. زمین میں یہ قابلیت ہے، پانی دیا آپ نے وہ زندہ ہو جائے گی، لیکن دل کو اگر زندہ کرنا ہے تو پہلی شرط یہ ہے کہ آپ اس کو طاہر کریں، اس کو پاک کریں، استغفار کے ذریعے، توبہ کے ذریعے. انسان جسم کے ظاہری نجاست کی دوری جو ہے پانی کے ذریعے دور کرتا ہے، لیکن قلب کی نجاست کو ختم کرنے کے لیے توبہ استغفار ہے. جب دل میں وہ صلاحیت پیدا ہو جاتی ہے تب جا کے وہاں حب علی جو ہے جاگزی ہوتا ہے، وہ اپنا گھر بناتا ہے، اور اس کے بعد وہ دل جو ہے زندہ ہوتا ہے اور ایمان کا نور جو ہے اس میں پھیلتا ہے۔ صلوات پڑھیں ایک بار اور۔ امیر المومنین نے اپنی زندگی میں عدل و انصاف کے سلسلے میں جو باتیں کی ہیں، جو اقدامات کیے ہیں، ایک مثال ہم نے دی تھی اس خطبے کے حوالے سے کہ بیت المال سے بھی اپنے حق کو چھوڑ دیتے ہیں، لیکن کسی کو اس سے حق سے زیادہ دینے کے لیے علی تیار نہیں ہے۔ گھر کے معاملات میں بھی آپ دیکھیں، امیر المومنین کی زندگی بہت ہی سادہ تھی، دولت اتنا کمائی ہے لیکن زندگی کس ٹائپ کی تھی انشاءاللہ پرسوں بتائیں گے۔ لیکن جب گھر والوں سے برتاؤ ہوتا تھا، جو سلوک تھا وہ سلوک بھی عدل و انصاف کی بنیاد پر ہے۔ ماہ رمضان روزے کے ایام ہیں، اور عام طور سے رواج ہے، ہم لوگ تو ایز اے کمیونٹی یہاں آتے ہیں، لیکن پھر بھی لوگ ایک دوسرے کے گھر جاتے ہیں، رشتہ داروں کے یہاں جاتے ہیں افطار کے لیے، خصوصاً اگر خاندان کا کوئی بزرگ ہو، اس کی کئی اولاد ہوں، سب اپنی جگہ پہ اسٹیبلش ہوں، اولاد کی خواہش ہوتی ہے، اور وہی اسی عنوان سے لگتا ہے امیر المومنین نے بھی اپنے روزے کے ایام کو تقسیم کر دیا تھا افطار کے حوالے سے، کہ ایک بار امام حسن کے گھر جاتے تھے، ایک بار امام حسین کے گھر جاتے تھے، ایک بار عبداللہ ابن جعفر کے پاس جاتے تھے، اور غالباً ایک وقت جو تھی، ایک رات جو تھی وہ جناب ام کلثوم کے لیے، جو غالباً امیر المومنین کے ساتھ ہی رہتی۔ شب 19 جناب ام کلثوم کے حصے میں آتی ہے، افطار کا وقت آیا، وہ امام جو امیر المؤمنین ہے، امام المتقین ہے، خلیفۃ المسلمین ہے، اس کے سامنے روٹی، دودھ اور نمک رکھا گیا۔ علی کہتے ہیں ام کلثوم سے کہ بیٹی یہ نمک اور روٹی دو چیزیں ہیں، اس میں سے ایک کو اٹھا لو، اس لیے کہ علی جو ہے تیاری کر رہا ہے اپنے رب سے ملنے کے لیے، اپنے خالی بطن میں جانا چاہتا۔ افطار بہت ہی مختصر ہوا، رات گزری ہے عبادت میں، لیکن خود ام کلثوم کی روایت ہے کہ ہر تھوڑی دیر کے بعد بابا جو ہے صحن میں جاتے تھے، صحن میں جانے کے بعد آسمان کی طرف دیکھتے تھے، اور دعا زبان پر یہی تھی، اللہم بارک لی ہذہ اللیل، خداوند اس رات کو میرے لیے مبارک قرار دے۔ عجب نہیں کہ وہ جملہ جو دعا افتتاح میں آتا ہے علی ہمیشہ پڑھتے تھے، ووفق فی سبیل قتلا، کہ خداوندہ مجھے توفیق دے کہ تیری راہ میں ہم شہید ہوں۔ علی جو ہے بستر پر مرنا نہیں چاہتا ہے، مرنا برحق ہے، لیکن اگر مرنا ہے تو اس راہ میں مریں جو خداوند عالم کے دین کے خاطر ہو۔ علی تیار ہوتے ہیں فجر کے نماز کے لیے، مسجد جانے کے لیے۔ آپ نے واقعات سنے ہیں کہ خود جناب ام کلثوم بڑی پریشان تھی، بابا کی اس کیفیت کو دیکھ کے کہتی بھی ہیں کہ آپ آج حسن کو بھیج دیں، آپ نہ جائیں، لیکن مولا کہتے ہیں نہیں، مجھے ہی جانا پڑے گا۔ اور جب جاتے ہیں، وہ علی جو زمین کو مردہ زمین کو زندہ کرتا تھا، اس کو اپنے گھر کی مرغابیوں کے بارے میں بھی فکر تھی کہ ام کلثوم میرے مصائب میں ان کے دانے اور پانی کو بھول جاؤ گی، انہیں تم رہا کر دو، آزاد کر دو۔ اتنا مہربان امام تھا، اپنے گھر سے نکلتے ہیں، مسجد میں جاتے ہیں، عزاداران حسین وہ وقت بھی آتا ہے کہ اذان بھی ہوتی ہے، اذان کے بعد لوگ جمع ہوتے ہیں، اور نمازیوں کی صف جو ہے برقرار ہوتی ہے،
امیر المومنین امام وہاں امام کے حیثیت سے اقتدا کرتے ہیں، لیکن عزاداران حسین یہ وہ وقت آتا ہے کہ علی جو ہے معراج مومن کے منزل پر ہے، سجدے کے عالم میں ہے۔ سجدے کے بعد انسان جب سر اٹھاتا ہے تو بڑی تیزی کے ساتھ اٹھتا ہے۔ یہاں علی بلند ہو رہے تھے اور یہاں ملعون ابن ملجم کا وار ہوا۔ یہ وار اتنی شدت سے پڑا ہے کہ علی کا فرق جو ہے دو حصے میں ہو جاتا ہے، لیکن اس وقت علی کی زبان پر صرف وہی جملہ تھا، فزت ورب الکعبہ، اے خدا کعبہ کی قسم علی کامیاب ہو گیا اپنی مراد میں۔ عزاداران حسین ایک آواز آسمان میں گونجتی ہے، لقد تہدمت ارکان الہدی، ہدایت کا رکن جو ہے منہدم ہو گیا۔ لوگ جمع ہو جاتے ہیں اور جب حسن اور حسین نے بابا کی اس کیفیت کو دیکھا ہے، کچھ لوگ ایک لحاف لے آتے ہیں، امیر المومنین کو لٹایا گیا، اتنے میں ابن ملجم کو گرفتار کر کے لایا گیا۔ عزاداران حسین علی کے انصاف اور عدل کے کمال کو دیکھے، اس حالت میں بھی جب اسے قریب لایا گیا اور علی کی نظر جب اس کے چہرے پر جاتی ہے، فوراً امام حسن سے کہتے ہیں ارفق یا ولدی باسیرک، اے میرے بیٹے اپنے اسیر کے ساتھ مہربانی سے پیش آنا۔ اس وقت امام حسن کہتے ہیں بابا اس نے تو ہمارے یتیمی کا سامان کیا ہے، لیکن بات یہی تھی کہ یہ رحمت للعالمین کا گھرانہ ہے۔ عجب نہیں کہ علی کوفے والوں کو یہ پیغام دے رہے ہوں گے کہ آج میں اپنے اسیر کے بارے میں اتنی نصیحت کرتا ہوں کہ اس کے ساتھ مہربانی کے ساتھ پیش آئے۔ دیکھو جب میرا پوتا یہاں آئے گا اسیر اور قیدی بن کے اس کے ساتھ بھی مہربانی سے پیش آنا۔ عزاداران حسین علی کو اس لحاف میں لٹایا گیا اور پھر گھر والے اور قریبی اصحاب نے اٹھایا۔ وہ علی جو اپنے قدموں سے محراب تک گیا تھا آج گھر والوں کے سہارے سے لحاف میں جا رہا ہے گھر پہ۔ جب قریب پہنچے ایک مرتبہ مولا نے کہا میرے اصحاب سے کہہ دو وہ دور چلے جائیں، اس لیے کہ جب گھر پہنچیں گے بیٹیاں رونا شروع کریں گی۔ عجب نہیں کہ علی کوفے والوں کو بتا رہے تھے جب میری بیٹی آئے اس کا احترام کرنا۔ عزاداران حسین وہاں گھر پر زینب ام کلثوم اور اہل حرم بڑے پریشان تھے، بابا کو کیا ہوا، اور انتظار میں تھے کب بابا کو لائے جائے۔ بس زینب سے ایک کہے کہ التجا کریں گے۔ زینب حسن و حسین موجود تھے، عباس موجود تھے، عبداللہ بن جعفر موجود تھے، یہ علی کو لحاف میں حفاظت کے ساتھ لے کے آ رہے ہیں، لیکن اس بچی کو یاد کرے جس نے خیمے کے پردے کو کھولا تو صرف گھوڑے کو دیکھا، سوار نظر نہ آیا، اور گھوڑے سے صرف اتنا ہی پوچھتی ہے اے اسب با وفا بتا میرے بابا کو پانی نصیب ہوا یا نہیں۔ ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون۔ خداوند اس قلیل بات قبول فرما، ہمارے گناہوں کو بخش دے، ہماری توفیقات میں اضافہ فرما، امام کے ظہور میں تعجیل فرما۔ ربنا تقبل منا انك انت السميع العليم۔ ماتم حسین۔